They are interested in a striker, right? They've been linked with Ollie Watkins, Nicholas Jackson, but it seems, Benjamin, we call him Sesko?
Hey, we have Tim Vickery there later
like
on,
Sean
maybe.
Connery
He's great at pronunciations.
Sesko, I think that's how you pronounce it.
I won't be pronouncing it like that.
It sounded like you've had a few when you say it that way. He's the front runner now. So where are we with this at the moment?
But take me through Benjamin Sesko, first of all, because what we've seen from him so far looks elite in this RB Leipzig shirt.
Yeah, I think he's one of those players that looks like an obvious scout's dream. When you go to watch a player, you go, oh man, the vertical leap, the size, the power, the striking ability. I still think he has a little bit of a ways to go in terms of actually putting it together, in terms of being a finished product, being that top-level striker. The production hasn't quite been there, but it's just one of those where you watch him play, you go, oh, I see this. I've seen this before. This can work. He's going to be a good player, you would think, at some point. But I just think in the overall, I was a bit disappointed in the performance that Leipzig as a team put out. And I think the reason why I felt that way is because you go into the season, they have Sesko, they have Lois Openda, they have Xavi Simons. This should be a team in the attack that is unstoppable, and I never really felt that of Leipzig last season. Disappointing in the Champions League, disappointing in the Bundesliga to not even make Europe. So I think Sesko still has a little bit of a ways to go, but you can understand why clubs are looking at him going 75, 80 million, why Leipzig won 75, 80 million, because this is a player that obviously projects to being a future star, but right now it's only projects. It's not quite that finished article.
So when you see the links to Manchester United, you see the links to Newcastle, depending, of course, how Alexander Isak, who's another person we're going to talk about on this, plays out. How do you see him fitting at Man United? Do you see that being him being the target man and the #1 striker as soon as he walks in through the door, if he does walk through the door?
I think so, because, well, the one thing that would, I think, be a little bit confusing for me when it comes to Man United is you have Bruno Fernandes already there, you sign Cunha, you sign Brian Mbeumo. So if you're only playing with 3 attackers, 3 strikers, one of those players is going to have to sit on the bench. And so I'm not sure with Zirkzee and with Højlund already there. I understand that they have not worked out to date, but for Manchester United, for me, it doesn't make sense with all the holes that they have through their squad that they go out and spend 225 million, all of their resources on their attack. I understand they only scored 44 goals last season, which is an appalling record. And there are a lot of reasons why that happened. But I think Sesko, actually, to me right now, makes a bit more sense at Newcastle. Because even if they keep Alexander Isak, we can talk about that story and all the developments that happened there. But even if they keep him, you know that at maximum, there's 1 more year left probably for Isak at Newcastle. And so they need to find his replacement. I think if we're talking about him moving in this window, it would make more sense to Newcastle, in my judgment.
Well, Newcastle naturally have to fill that void anyway because Callum Wilson has also left. So they might be looking for more than 1 striker naturally within this window.
Sesko's a little overqualified to be a backup.
I like that.
But I think they've got to figure out maybe, if Isak stays, how to play the 2 of them together.
Let's talk about the silent assassin, someone who's an international striker, but you don't really hear a peep from him, Ollie Watkins. I know saw the transfer deadline bid last January in terms of from Arsenal, and he looked like he had agreed terms and wanted to explore what looked like Champions League football more consistently. But how do you see his future in this window?
Well, first off, let's talk about the second half of last season when they bring in Marcus Rashford, when they bring in Marco Asensio. He was a player, and even John Duran, who had his period before going to Saudi Arabia, he's always been challenged at Aston Villa, and he seems to always come out the other side of it as, you can try and replace me, but there is no replacement because I'm that good of a player. And coming through the leagues, you look at his previous destinations, playing at Brentford, playing in non-league, he's got an incredible background to have gotten here. The one thing, though, that it's just a reality now of the way that most clubs do business in the transfer market is Ollie Watkins is 29 years old. And I realize that in the scope of normal life, that's still a very young person. But in football, there are clubs that are resistant to paying a big transfer fee when, in all likelihood, at the end of it, you will not be recouping your cost if you sell 32-year-old, 33-year-old Ollie Watkins to another club. You'll get maybe some money back, but the resale value just isn't there. So who are the clubs they're going to go out there and make this guy their main man, spend the big money when, unfortunately, he's 29. That is a reality he cannot change. But without question, a player worth having, worth keeping, and can be an addition to any big team.
I can tell you one of those clubs that's definitely linked with Ollie Watkins. That's Manchester United once again. It feels like they're at the forefront of all of the minds when you're talking about these number 9s around Europe. So do you see him fitting in Ruben Amorim's system, though?
I do. I like him more as a fit than Sesko.